In the last episode, I alluded to this topic today. I'm going to read a question in just a moment from a mom that came in, and it shook me a little bit and humbled me and reminded me of some things. And these things are things that I have been wanting to share. And I'm going to start off and say that I have my son's permission to share a little bit of his story, a little bit of our story, and a little bit of his journey, in hopes that you can learn and glean from it. Maybe we didn't do things all right. Actually, I know we didn't do things all right. And you can make some adjustments and you can adjust it to your situation. But before we get into that, I do want to kind of let you know that starting in January, I know that so many of you want just like, tell me practical how to do this, how to answer all like the tactical questions about homeschool. And so coming in January, we are going to get down nitty and gritty to lots of very precise homeschool topics. I feel like I've been a little bit more topical lately, and especially this month of December, listening is up and down and your schedule is kind of off. So I've definitely been just doing a little bit more topical things that you can pop into your earbuds and not really have to think so much about the practicality of homeschool, but just being able to apply hopefully some wisdom, some information when it comes to just the overall bigger picture. We have to remember that homeschool is not just academics. We are raising our children. And so so the announcement before I forget, coming at the end of the month, I do have something that I'm going to offer to you, a way to be able to kickstart and reignite some excitement about homeschool for your family in the new year. So stay tuned to that. I will have more information about that next week, and then that will launch the very last week, I think the 29th of December. So that is what is on the horizon. But right now, let's talk a little about what if you are the one that has the kid who is, we'll say in air quotes, the bad kid, the naughty kid, the one that is not adhering to the behavior that is expected. And I'm going to share a little bit more than I have shared in the past, again, with his full permission. So let's get into it now. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where we talk anything and everything homeschool and all that encompasses the homeschool lifestyle. I'm your host, Leigh Nguyen. I'm a mom who never intended to homeschool, and suddenly I am here, 14 years later, with 2 homeschool graduates and 1 more to go. No matter where you are in your homeschool journey, Little by Little Homeschool seeks to empower and encourage you to carry out this amazing calling of home educating and discipling your children. It's not always easy, but I'm here to walk alongside you because I promise that these years are worth all of your effort. Grab that load of laundry that needs folded, settle in at a kitchen sink to wash those dishes, or tie up those walking sneakers, and let's get into today's topic. The basis of today's episode is a question that came into my Q&A inbox, and it's something that I have been kind of mulling around already, and this was just like okay, yes, let's do this. And as I read it, my heart just feels for this mom, and I think that there are many of us out there. There are some that are in the trenches with this mom, and there are some that you might be a little bit out of the trenches like I am when it comes to this question. But it very much humbled me, and have to remember that there are parents of these kids that I have said, well, maybe they're not good influences for your kids to be around. And there are parents of these children who are really working at it. And so I have to remember that as well. So hopefully I have not hurt anybody's feelings. The question says, hi, Leigh, it's hard to admit, but one of my kids sounds like a lot of these kids that the homeschool moms are trying to stay away from in the other Q&As. I'm so ashamed and embarrassed by the behavior. We have had issues at co-op with destroying other kids' crafts and playing mean with them. Then at a birthday party, my son popped the balloons and messed up a lot of the decor. I'm struggling with what to do or how to handle him. Do you have any episodes I should listen to? Yes, this one. I put him in timeout and I take stuff away. I don't know where he picks up this behavior. The other kids in our group are all so well behaved. I just don't know what I'm not doing. I can only imagine what they all think of me. I agree this isn't acceptable behavior, but I don't know what else to do. First, I'm going to start off. I don't know the age of this child. And it's a boy, her son. So we have a little boy, don't know his age, and I don't know if there are other siblings as well. So I can't quite get too specific, which I think is actually kind of good. I can be a little bit more generic with this because there is a different dynamic here when there are other children to actually parent as well. So I don't know if this is an only child or there are multiple children. And I'm going to start at the end of her question of what she wrote, and then we're going to kind of work our way back into it. But she says at the end, I can only imagine what they all think of me. When I was a young mom, I was much more judgmental than I am now. My kids were saying something about, oh, I know, when it came to Thanksgiving, my 17-year-old was like, what do you want me to wear? Now, we were just home. This would be the 5 of us. And then we were hosting 3 single adults who were not able to get back home for the Thanksgiving holiday. And so there's going to be 8 of us. And I said to him, I don't really care what you wear. No, really, what do you want me to wear? Because he was wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt. It was the beginning of the day, and we weren't having dinner until like dinner time. I said, I really don't care. You could dress up, you could whatever. I don't really care. He was like, no, for real. And I was like, listen, how you dress is not a reflection on me. How I dress is a reflection on me. And so the older I have gotten, the more I'm like, well, and it's easier as they get older. You can be like, you want to dress like a slob? That's a reflection of you. You want to dress up nice? That's a reflection of you. But when our children are young, we feel like it is a direct reflection upon us. And I feel badly about judging other parents and the way that they were parenting and friends because of the way that their children acted and behaved. And time and maturity and wisdom has shown me that maybe that wasn't always right. Now, sometimes the kids were crazy and insane, and the parents were a little crazy and insane too. So there's kind of, you got to take that with a grain of salt. But I think that if these are maybe good friends of yours and they see that you're putting the time and the effort into it. Now, I'm going to draw today from my own experience, and that experience is with my older son, who is now 21. Again, we've talked about it. I mean, he will openly talk about his journey and everything, and he's okay with me sharing this all with you. And we're not going to get too into the weeds of it and stuff, but just kind of a little bit more general. But my friends knew that parenting him was hard because I would talk to them about it, like the good close ones, the ones that I felt like I could be honest with, and they would pray for me and we would pray together. And so I knew that they knew that that we were doing our best and we were trying, we were working hard at it. So let's just start with that. Don't worry about what others are thinking. You do what you need to do. Okay. And so I'm going to give you some ideas here today. The first thing, I don't know what age my son was when I realized that there was a word to describe his behavior. And I had at that time, he had an older sister and a younger brother who you could place them into any situation and they would adapt well. They would be a good representative of the Lord and our family, and they would acclimate to the place. They would check out how everybody else was behaving, and they would go ahead and behave likewise. If this was a museum, they would then act like you needed to in a museum, in a library. If this was like a bounce house or one of those places you can go and jump on the trampolines and stuff, they would adjust there as well, and they could be rowdy and all that kind of stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that my younger son, boys, they just like to have fun. Let's just admit that, right? My 2 boys together, sometimes I was like, oh my goodness, the amount of ruckus and laughing and just the good time they were always trying to have. But I realized that there was a word, and I had to, I was thinking about it, and then maybe, again, I don't know if we did this all right, but this is what we did. I realized that the word that would describe his behavior was obnoxious. Now, there is an actual definition of the word obnoxious. I was going to look it up. I was thinking about that earlier, but I did not. And I'm not going to, because I came up with my own definition. And the definition was one that I gave to him. And I said, your behavior is obnoxious. Obnoxious is when you do or say something and you are the only one laughing. Because that would often happen, right? So I'm thinking about your son as he's popping the balloons and messing up the decor. He thinks that what he's doing is maybe funny. But if he stopped and looked around the room, no one may be laughing. And so I would use that word, like that was the definition that we gave to him. And his siblings knew the definition as well because they heard it a lot. And I would say, your behavior is obnoxious. Look around the room. I mean, we would stop at things. I would stop. We were at something and I would walk up to him and I would get down to his level and I'd say, look around the room. Is anybody else laughing? No. I was like, then your behavior is obnoxious. So we're going to start with that. We're going to get into the behavior thing. So stick with me here. Okay. And so that helped him to realize that the way that he was acting was actually not producing the results that he thought it was producing. In his own mind, he thought everybody else was laughing. But let's talk about behavior. We have to reach their hearts because behavior modification is not heart change. We need to reach their hearts with the gospel. We need to have a lot of conversations with them. And so I would say a big thing for you to do is your Bible time, reading the Word of God, teaching him the gospel, showing him how God can change his heart, which then once your heart is changed, sanctification, then the change in behavior and the way that you live is just an outpouring of that. Now, he is maybe, 5 years old, 10 years old. And so his behavior is going to be of that age range, and he might just be a bit more immature. We just know that boys are overall more immature at the same age as girls are. That's just how it is. And so he might be on the more immature end of things as well. So we need to understand that, take a look and say, okay, because this can also go, you might be comparing his behavior to another little boy the same age, but maybe this other boy is the firstborn in the family and your son is maybe the secondborn or thirdborn or fourthborn, and there's older siblings. So that can also kind of, just in general, we're going to go generalization. Firstborns tend to be a little bit more mature. They kind of grow up a little bit more and they feel like they have more responsibility on their shoulders. But he could be a firstborn and still be like this. That doesn't mean anything is wrong with him, but we have to reach his heart. And so how do you do that? You can talk character building. This is like getting books. You are including this in your homeschool time. This is a priority. Also, the next thing I want to mention is that you have to accept that he is going to require a bigger effort to parent. And that's okay. God has a plan for him. God has a plan for you. And God's plan for your son, you get to be a part of that. And it's going to feel hard. It's going to feel very hard at times. It's going to be exhausting. I remember nights of standing over my now 21-year-old, of him being 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, standing over him while he slept, praying, just asking God for wisdom on how to parent him and how to guide him, because he was a mighty force and he just didn't have the maturity in order to channel that in a way. That was the pointing out that the behavior is obnoxious, trying to get away with things. And so God has a plan for him, and it's going to take more effort. There are sometimes we're going to have children that are going to require more of our energy, and it's going to feel exhausting at times, but you stick with it. You do not abandon it because it is worth it in the end. You get to be a part of it. God has a plan for him. He is not a mistake. The way he is, and the fact that the two of you are together, that you are his mom, that is planned and orchestrated by God. It is not a mistake. You will grow in sanctification as you parent your son, and he will grow in sanctification as well. We cannot guarantee that our children will grow their own faith, but we are faithful to impart our faith and impart the words of God, God's word, the Bible, and the truth that it contains. We need to be faithful to that. And then what they do with that is their choice. They have the ability to make that choice. And we just pray and we work hard at it and we do what God has called us. The last thing I do want to mention, I could go on for a while. We have story after story after story. And in the end, I'm so glad that we stuck with it. It was a lot of effort. And I say we because it's my husband as well. And this last point is that dad has to step in. I don't know what kind of father that your husband is, and it doesn't really matter. I guess it matters to a degree, because if he is a bit more passive, you're going to have to ask him to step in, and you're going to have to show him when to step in. I remember having James just step in and having to take over quite a bit. Now, I remember James saying that at some point in church, an older gentleman had said to him, because our older son was probably maybe like 8, 9. And this gentleman said, just wait until he gets to be about 10. He is going to be on you all the time. He's going to want to know what's dad doing. He's going to want to do every single thing with you. Because up to that point, he was a mama's boy. And around the age of 10, that happened. We noticed that with our other son as well, that they just gravitated towards dad. They wanted to do those things that seemed dangerous, those things that seemed manly. And also at that point, then I started to just release a bit more. And at the age of 12, both our boys, they turned 12. My husband did a call to manhood ceremony with them, which could be an entire couple of episodes in and of itself. If you'd like me to talk more about that, maybe get him on here or talk about it, or at least get his information and I can share it, then let me know and I can do that. But dad has to step in. So I'm not saying that your son is 10 or 12, but just saying to dad, I need you to step in. There were times that, of course, dad isn't always home. And I would say, if we continue with this, you're going to have a conversation with dad. Or sometimes dad would be home. And I would say, do you want to have a conversation with dad? Oh, no. Well, then let's straighten up. This behavior isn't appropriate. So let me just give you an example. You go to a birthday party. Dad's not there. I mean, my husband didn't want to go to other kids' birthday parties and stuff. And so say we went to this birthday party and our now 21-year-old son, however old, he was, that your son is, popped the balloons and messed up a lot of the decorations. We do what we can in that situation. And going back to that, just understanding it's going to take a bigger effort. You might not be able to leave him at things that you could possibly leave the other siblings or your other children at. And this was part of the case too. We volunteered at everything that he did. My husband never played baseball growing up. Guess who was a baseball coach? My husband. He coached baseball for many years because we weren't just going to drop him off with somebody else, because I didn't know what behavior he was going to have and what he was going to do. And because we saw this as a way of training and teaching him. And so dad would need to step in, and I would say, you can go talk to dad. There were times with things and I was just like, this is a conversation with dad. This is out of my range. And they did not always enjoy it. I say they because both of them, but dad has to step in. And you need to say to him, if he's becoming unruly at dinner, I'm not going to say anything. I need you to take over. And so boys respond very quickly to dad. If dad is a commanding presence for them, that they respect him, then they will listen. But dad also needs to have that gentle part of let's have conversations. And he needs to bring the gospel in. And this isn't just behavior modification. This is reaching your son's heart. So just know, as I close this out, all is not lost. I can promise and assure you that. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. There's going to be tears on your part. There's going to be tears on his part. It's going to be hard. It might get harder, but you keep at it. God has called you to this, and he has an amazing plan for your son. Your son is an image bearer of the creator of the universe. And so focus on how can you be faithful in raising him today. And maybe you can go ahead and take my definition of obnoxious if it fits. I don't know. You might be the type of parent be like, well, that's really rude to say to him. But listen, until you have that child, you might not really quite understand. And we still joke about it now. And we have kind of like a voice that we do. And when we talk about being obnoxious and stuff, it's just kind of a little bit of a family joke. And he doesn't take any offense to it. And he will readily say, you know what? I was the bad kid. And I was definitely gravitated towards the bad kid. He's like, but I think more so I was the bad kid. Because I would say you just were gravitating towards the kids who didn't have good behavior. And he's like, yeah, that was me. I'm like, oh, but he is just a mighty force for the kingdom of God right now. He is doing great and wonderful things. He has on mission for life and sharing the gospel and just doing what God has called him to. So just be faithful. God is faithful. You stay faithful to it. I hope that this has helped you a little bit, and maybe you have found yourself in a similar situation. And I just pray that this takes a little bit of a weight off your shoulders, but also puts the pressure on you that this is a really important task. And I know that God will continue to equip you for it. Okay, we have not much time until Christmas and the end of the year. Don't forget, at the end of this month, I'm going to be sharing a special resource with you to kind of give you a little swift kick in the pants and get your homeschool on track as we step into the new year. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If it was just what you needed to hear, would you do me a favor and share it with a friend? And if you would like to connect more, social media links and more are in the show notes just for you. I promise to see you back here real soon.